Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Hope everybody's doing fantastic. Brief show for us today. We were off the air at 11:30 because of Canes Hoops. They're in the Charleston Classic, taking on Drake. So, it was a brief one for us. Miami Dolphins are getting ready for the New England Patriots as they continue to try and climb out of this hole, the big-ass hole that Calais Campbell has referred to, and get themselves, hopefully set themselves up for a Thanksgiving showdown for 500. But first, they need to take out the New England Patriots. And, I will say, I know there's always a little bit of uneasiness when it comes to divisional matchups. There's a little bit of uneasiness when it comes to the idea that, hey, this team is, they grind it out. You beat them by a heel the last time around. Polk basically, if he was catching it forward instead of backwards, that would have been a touchdown, whatever. But this is a team that Tua owns. I mean, he has walked into the league and he has never lost to the New England Patriots. Now, mind you, it was a post-Tom Brady world, baby. It was not the New England Patriots that, of course, were trying, that had to deal with the cheating Patriots winning it all the time. But nonetheless, they did have one of the best head coaches of all time, and particularly they had this current head coach on their staff in Gerard Mayo. So he has been very familiar with the Tua winning. But in fact, it was interesting hearing him talk about this matchup because you have a guy here who it very clearly seems like he's the quarterback has his respect. I mean, if you've had a front row seat, to this guy and you've never come out on the winning end, how could you not? And the fact that you had a game that was in hand, but also the Dolphins, themselves had a pretty piss-poor performance in that game to walk away with the win, the lone game that they won without Tua. I'm sure he's got to be thinking to himself, all right, what do we have to do to get this thing done? And then on the other side of things with the Dolphins, I'm sure that they have to think, hey, these guys are coming down here to our building. Dolphins trying to keep things right, a 3-game win streak in a row. I know that there's a lot of buzz about Drake May and that he's been playing a lot better and he makes the Patriots a more dynamic team. And that's true. I mean, when you're taking on a Jacoby Brissett team, you basically know, hey, if we score 17 points, we're probably going to win that game. And now you have this margin for error with a young QB. The thing is, though, I do like the idea of having a young QB and seeing what Anthony Weaver can dial up against him and seeing what elements. Now, I'm not watching every Drake May game, so I'm definitely going to get the first look about, like, hey, what does this guy do when they try to extend plays and things like that. I do remember Drake's time in the ACC, certainly, but this one is going to be interesting. But I got to say, for the Dolphins' perspective, it's still in the category of a don't lose game. Like, don't lose to a rookie. Do not lose to this Patriots team. Do not allow your first loss to the Patriots be one that basically breaks the back of your entire season, because it's unfortunate what happened to the Dolphins earlier in the year with his injury, clearly, and how he reacted to it with being furious about being the face of concussions and whatnot. But you got to start, you can erase that by just continuing to put your team in position to be in this playoff race. And there really is, there is no margin for error, especially, you look at the other teams that you're kind of jockeying with and some of the schedules that they have. Man, this is going to be about as easy as it gets, respectfully to the Patriots, for the Dolphins, having to go to Green Bay, having to go even still to the Metal. I mean, like, those Jets games are looking much more winnable the way the Jets have been playing and how they're imploding before our very eyes. And Cleveland certainly has, like, that doesn't look like the challenge that it was going to be. But it's still, you don't know what the weather's going to be like. You don't know what those road elements are going to be like. How are the Dolphins going to handle that? Those are fascinating things that hopefully we'll get some answers to next week. That being said, you do have a Dolphins team here that is definitely looking like it's got a different identity. We spoke a little bit about this, how they're extending drives. They're becoming a little bit more well-rounded. It has not been as reliant on the cheetah. They've almost basically ignored Jalen Waddle. And it's become more of, hey, Jonnu Smith and run game and Devon Achane. That is an interesting thing, by the way, going back to this past game that I had forgotten about going into this. But I had forgotten that Devon Achane was knocked out cold in this Patriots game. Like, he was hit in the air and then basically hit his head on the turf, and he was out with a concussion before he had to come back with the Guardian cap. And it was interesting because there's been so much talk this week about Mike McDaniel, and he's ruling with an iron fist. He's the new Iron Mike because, Iron Mike Tyson has kind of gone by the wayside. He seems like he's expired. He's aged out. So there's a new Iron Mike, Iron Fist Mike McDaniel, who's ruling with an iron fist, and he's not letting anybody skate. He's taking jobs. He's taking snap counts. People are trying to say, is he sending a message? I don't think he is sending. This is one of those things that's interesting with that, because you think to this game against the Patriots, it was probably, actually, I don't think there's really an argument for it. It was Raheem Mostert's best game of the season. He had to be called and summoned into duty with Devon Achane getting hurt, and ran with authority, ran well, and was a big factor in them getting in that touchdown drive that kind of sealed it for him. But the thing with Mostert that is, it shouldn't be too surprising. I mean, the guy is the age that he is, right? Not everybody is a Marvel like Derrick Henry, and not everybody is a what he did last year was amazing at his age, right? Like, you could probably compare what he did last year to almost what Calais Campbell is doing this year at his age in running back years. And to think that, that tread was going to go on forever probably was wishful thinking. And especially the fact that he's had, the chest injury to start the season. Seems like he's been pretty banged up this year as it is, after a year where he had all the production that he is. Maybe this is starting to catch up with him. Maybe it is. And on top of it, Devon Achane has been awesome. I mean, he's arguably, a top 4 player on offense this year. Like, if you think like Tua, Teron, Jonnu Smith, Devon Achane, that's Tyreek you still got to throw in there, I think, just out of respect. But that's probably the list. And, it's been incredible. You see some of the stats, like he's never dropped a football. He's been as reliable as they come. And so you wonder, is Mike McDaniel really sending a message, or did the better, younger player in their prime just take over the role? And Raheem Mostert's not everybody can be beating Father Time. Look at Jordan Poyer. Jordan Poyer probably would be in the position, but there's not really anybody to take it. He doesn't have a Devon Achane behind him. He doesn't have a Jalen Wright behind him. If he did, he probably would have lost his gig too, especially looking at some of the numbers that they're throwing around with him. So I do think that Mike McDaniel's grown up as a coach, and I've been impressed with that. I've been impressed with a guy who has been able to change the identity of his team. Does feel like a guy who was a little bit beaten down early on when you didn't expect it. A little bit of shell shock to Mike McDaniel. I think he's rallied in a pretty good way. Mind you, the margin for error is very, very small right now. So if you lose to the Patriots, Mike, not saying you're fired, but like all this good grace goes out the window, dude. So just keep that in mind. But I have been impressed. I do think that he's a good coach. And honestly, the games that they lost, the game plan was good. Guys like Mostert, guys like Gingold, Tua, Aaron Brewer, guys that he should rely upon, guys that he probably thinks are about as rock steady as it comes to count on, and they let him down. And so I do think that we've seen a guy who has grown up a little bit, and that's been good to see. And then you look at this Patriots matchup, Snoop Huntley with barely any experience with the Dolphins starting this game, Achane knocked out of it, a bad snap to that went over Huntley's head that probably cost a field goal that got doinked. They got a field goal that was a terrible snap by Blake Ferguson when he was still on the Dolphins, or is he still on the Dolphins? I'm very confused. This is out of pure ignorance. What the hell's going on with Blake Ferguson? I don't really understand this. This is such a crazy thing, because I thought that I read that he was back with the team, but he's not snapping with the team. Because I know that initially he went out for personal reasons, and I don't ever want to judge anybody who's dealing with personal reasons, because, it could be the worst. Who knows? You could have something going on with the family. I would never wish that upon anybody. I'm just confused by it, though, because I thought that he was back with the team, and he just kind of remains on this non-football illness list. And the Dolphins are playing this game with, adding long snappers. They had the 40-year-old do it. Then you had this Addington fellow who was, the fastest snap in all of Texas. And I think he could be elevated for like one more game. But and I think the thing that I find crazy about it is like they already did one time a little bit of roster do-si-do with Blake Ferguson. Remember with the opening day roster, they just released him for a day, which was kind of strange. And now there's this going on. So I'm trying to figure out what the hell's going on with the Dolphins' long snapping situation. I'm fascinated by it, which, by the way, goes to my original point to start the year of why don't we have super long snappers? Why can't we teach Aaron Brewer to long snap? Why can't Andrew Meyer, who's on the roster, why can't he long snap in addition to being a center? I've had football players call me idiot over this, and they certainly have more knowledge than I do. But I saw Shohei Ohtani, throw 95 miles an hour and hit 50 home runs and steal 50 bases. Like, things in sports can get pretty crazy. We got Victor Wembanyama at 7'5", hitting 8 threes in a game. So you're telling me there's nobody out there who could be a super snapper? I'm just spitballing here, dude. It is crazy. One guy I do got to apologize, though, to, apparently, is Liam Eichenberg. All right, this dude has been an absolute menace. And I'm not just talking about his blocking skills, but apparently we know that he's pulled the moves of, like, causing some unnecessary roughness penalties. Remember, he flopped for the headbutt. Genius stuff from Eichenberg, because if you maybe don't have all the elite talent that you have against your opponents, to be a Badger, to be a guy who's really getting people on edge and getting people in angst, very impressive. Very impressive. And then like talking just wild shit about it afterwards, where you're like, Max Crosby, easy to agitate. I'm like, man, look at Eichenberg. I think it was taking all those lessons from Christian Wilkins, to be honest with you. Because Christian Wilkins used to just like crush him in camp. And Christian Wilkins is known as just a filthy player. So maybe he's just taking those lessons and he goes, I'm going to be offensive line Christian Wilkins. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get my Richie Incognito on. Because like it is a wild thing. Do you think like from years from now we're going to say like, man, I never saw Liam Eichenberg coming as the next Richie Incognito. But maybe that's what he's going to be. He settled into his guard spot much like Richie did. And, he found his mentor. And Richie, it was the great Brett Romberg to mentor him. And this for Eichenberg, it might have been on the other side of the ball with Christian Wilkins. Who's to say, dude? I don't know. But from my standpoint, it has been nice to see him seem to find his niche. And on that offensive line, Tua, getting back to him, never losing to the Patriots. This was kind of Goosey's because he had said that he wants Aaron Brewer here for a long time, which I am here for, so long as you guys catch each other's snaps, okay? I don't want none of this Cardinals nonsense going on between you, all right? We already were dealing with snap issues. We've had the fumble rooskies where, Tua's sitting here and he's, telling you he's a shortstop. And I would tell you that, Tua, if I've seen those shortstop hands drop the ball as many times as I've seen you drop the ball, and I love you, I would be putting a first baseman's mitt on you, dude. Like that's how that's been going. So let's continue to clean that up. Let's get it in a good place and go kick the Patriots' ass.